Good evening. It is May the 4th, 2016. We are the Society for Economic Equality. This is CTV, Oh Say Can You See, coming to you live from the studios of GRTV in Grand Rapids, Michigan. It is May 4th again. May the 4th be with you and also with us. Tonight, we are going to show you how Bernie Sanders can win, and we'll also show you that he is winning and that he has been winning and that the evidence is in the exit polls. We will be going over various acts of electoral fraud and voter suppression, of which Hillary Clinton has been the beneficiary, of which the mainstream media has failed to report, despite the ongoing lawsuits and investigations in numerous states, including Arizona, New York, and Illinois and Ohio. With me tonight to discuss these issues and to bring you the antidote to the mainstream media's gloom and doom and despair for progressives and their continual chant of Bernie cannot win. With me tonight to convince you that not only can Bernie win, Bernie is winning, and that we are living in a revolutionary, transformative moment. Here with me to discuss these issues, on my left, longtime C member, Ann Schweitzer, and on my far left, my girlfriend and guest of the TV show, who just got back from Indiana, where she was working hard on getting Bernie elected. Well, she's been working real hard, probably be a delegate, but we'll be at the convention one way or the other, right?
One way or another.
Well, why don't we start with you then, since you've been on the campaign trail. So they say Bernie can't win. How did it look in Illinois? They said he was going to lose. Indiana. They said he was going to lose Indiana. He did not lose Indiana. He won Indiana, but he did not win it by the margin that the exit poll showed. Once again, a few points were shaved off. He was supposed to win it 56 to 44. He won it 53 to 47, about, right? Mm-hmm. So it looks like they got another 6 points off him.
Yeah. When we were down there, we went to the office. We were there a few days. Various people spoke to us and said they were having a pretty awful time. They were trying to vote, and they couldn't. They locked down 3 high schools that were polling places. And
why did they do that?
They said the reason was because somebody somewhere in the neighborhood was suicidal and then had left his house. So they locked down 3 polling places.
Well, if I were a Hillary Clinton supporter, I guess I'd be suicidal too.
Right. So, yeah, they were locked down. They said on the news that it was an hour, but they were actually down 2 hours.
These are forms of voter suppression that we'll be talking about, which, like the exit polls, the voter suppression has all been favoring Hillary. Now, people go, oh, you're just whining, this is a system, you don't expect fair elections. If Bernie's going to beat the establishment candidate, he's got to win by so much that this doesn't matter. And he is, and he will, and it will come down to a contested convention, and we're going to talk about that. But first, I wanted to ask Ann about something you were saying earlier about how the media is continuing to cover the Republicans, even though there's only one Republican left in the race, whereas with Bernie, they're just going, oh, well, he won, but he can't win.
Well, yeah, I noticed that up until yesterday, when Cruz dropped out, and I hear Kasich's going to drop out today, that they were covering they were covering Cruz and Kasich almost as much as they were covering Trump, where Hillary is getting all the airtime, and Bernie's not getting any.
Well, in a way, this could be good for Bernie now, with Trump is this morning tweeted that he's glad that he doesn't have to run against Bernie, because Bernie's the winner, has got people behind him. He's going to get to run against Hillary because the DNC has rigged primaries for him. So this is an interesting case, and Trump will be making Bernie's point, it looks like, which is that Hillary is the perfect opponent for Trump. He doesn't have to talk about himself or his policies. All he has to do is attack her burgeoning her scandals, and every day brings forth a new one. She lost a superdelegate today. Her political mentor, the powerful Speaker of the New York House, Sheldon Silver, has been sentenced to 12 years in prison. He will be reporting for a sentence on July 1st, so he will not be at the convention to cast his vote for Hillary Clinton. Let's talk about this contested convention. Bernie says it's going to be a contested convention, and it looks like even the Washington Post agrees that Hillary is unlikely to get the number of delegates it takes to pledge delegates. So this nomination will hinge on superdelegates, and the superdelegates have largely, even before the primaries began, pledged to Hillary Clinton. It was her way to try to prevent anyone from challenging her to have it in the pocket. So let's talk about this. What could we expect to see at the convention besides 500,000 or 1 million people surrounding the convention hall shouting, "Show us what democracy looks like"?
Well, up until recently, people have been saying, yeah, Hillary has these superdelegates, but superdelegates can always change their mind.
Well, they were never meant to vote before. They were meant to vote at a convention to break a tie or to prevent someone who had been proven to be unworthy or unwinnable from getting the nomination.
And in Bernie's case, or in this case, the case of this election, many of them had already pledged to Hillary
Right.
before the thing even started,
Right.
before Bernie even announced he was running.
Yes, and that they
So
did that to
that's
discourage.
like-
They did that to
That's not how it's supposed to go.
It was not supposed to go that way. It's, Hillary used superdelegates to try to discourage anyone from running against her, which is a very nasty thing to do, really, and it's very typical of her. We're getting into the electoral fraud, voter suppression, registration tampering, all of the things that Clinton has done to make sure that she wins the nomination.
Are these the points that are going to be made at the convention? Are these good enough to have it contested that there was election fraud in, 6 or whatever states it was?
Pretty much all of them. There are irregularities in every election that's been held. Started in Iowa, and it's been in every election. People have re-registered to be a Democrat or have always been a Democrat, have found themselves kicked off the rolls. If it was a closed election, they were kicked over to be an independent or a Republican or something that couldn't vote for Bernie. And then if it was an open election, they were just kicked off altogether, like in Brooklyn. 126,000 people
Closed
just
election.
in the borough of
Right.
Brooklyn weren't on the rolls at all.
They were, yes, they were
Right,
expunged
but
from the
then,
rolls.
2 days later, Hillary gets on a major news show and says, I have 2 million more than Bernie. Is she including the ballots that were not counted, or when she says that,
She's not counting provisional ballots.
She's
also
sure
not
not.
taking into account what a caucus means. So the caucus states that Bernie won. Someone who goes to a caucus, a political scientist says they represent 20 or 50 votes, really. And it's once again, it's Bernie played by the rules, and then her taking what advantage she could get, and then saying, but you played by the rules and you won these states, but they don't really count because they're not votes. Those caucus
Yeah,
goers are
she's
not
interpreting
voters.
them,
Right.
creative interpretation. But the fact is, it appears that neither of them are going to be able to get the requisite 2,383 pledged delegates. And to be clear, a pledged delegate is a delegate who derives from the votes of the people.
Right, and
So,
what is that number again?
That number is 2,383, 2383.
2383.
It's
And
pretty
it's not
widely believed that neither of them, Bernie nor Hillary, will be able to get to that. So given that, it will be a contested convention. Now, the other possibility is that she will ramp up her cheating. It's already been, extremely destructive.
Right.
And made a humongous difference, as we know from the exit polls,
Exit
which
polls,
we'll
yeah.
talk about. So, one way or another, by hook or by crook, she and the establishment all hope that they will seal it up before the convention. But I think just about every election has lawsuits, pending against it at this point. There was an emergency injunction done against certifying the New York election just before it was going to be certified, because there were all these lawsuits waiting to move forward. It goes on and on. There are a number of lawsuits in Arizona. Arizona was huge.
Yes, the
also
Department of
for
Justice
cheating.
itself is investigating Arizona. The Clinton campaign has joined a certain part of the lawsuit. Sanders is also a part of that lawsuit. There's lawsuits to invalidate the whole Arizona election. There are lawsuits asking for a revote. Sanders is only asking that the provisional ballots be counted. You can't, of course, Hillary isn't counting all the votes that have been suppressed, and she's not counting provisional ballots when she says she has this lead. Those ballots in New York, they said they were going to count the provisional ballots and the court-ordered ballots because there was so much registration tampering. Many people had to go to a judge to get an order that to be allowed to vote, and then that vote was put aside and said, well, yeah, we'll see, we'll count it later, maybe, whatever.
Right.
So,
And of course, Arizona, a lot of people had to wait 2, 3, 4, and 5 hours. How many people can stand in line for 5 hours?
Another-
A whole lot of people can't.
right, and that's
so-
why in areas where Bernie was doing well, they closed polling places. 2/3 of the polling places were closed in
Maricopa County.
Maricopa County in Arizona,
Where
and
Phoenix
also
and
in Rhode
Tempe.
Island.
Well, what I heard was that in 2012, there were 200 polling places in that county, and in this year, there's
60.
60.
60.
200 to 60.
Right, and now let's
That's
talk about electronic machines, how easily they can be hacked, and what the exit polls mean. Audit in Chicago found that votes on electronic voting machines did not match the papers trail, and that in every case it was votes of Bernie's being erased and votes being created for Hillary. So some people are saying, what is Hillary? No wonder Hillary doesn't worry about reaching out to the Bernie supporters. She could just make them disappear
Right.
and then manufacture her own votes.
Yeah.
And this is something, no doubt, that Trump will be beating her over the head with. So the Clinton people have said that Trump is how they're going to win the general election, but they're underestimating the American people's ability to see past what the mainstream media is doing. The mainstream media is just going, she's inevitable, don't worry about it, it's all figured out. And all of this corruption doesn't matter because everybody does it. Hillary loves to say everybody does it and I've never been indicted. But she may well be indicted, and that too could hand the presidency to Trump, which is part of Bernie's plea to the superdelegates. This is your job, is to prevent an unworthy candidate like Hillary Clinton using illegal means, who is under massive investigations from being the head of the party. If you run Hillary Clinton, even if she were somehow to win, it would drag the party down because you wouldn't be able to get anything done because you would be defending Hillary Clinton day after day until her failed presidency finally collapsed, and with it the Democratic Party. This is the argument that the Bernie Sanders campaign is making to the superdelegates as we speak. The superdelegates are going to have to listen, or the Democratic Party is done. This is a live call-in show. Our number is 459-4881, and we'll be taking your calls. I hope they put that number up on the screen so everyone can see it.
Can we go back to Indiana a minute?
Yes.
Just on that note, because how engaged people are matters a great deal.
Yes, it does.
So, admittedly, in the first area, we did some sign waving of these signs and homemade signs, and it was only perhaps 1 out of 10 cars that would go nuts on their horn and honk and wave and yay Bernie and all that. But when we were downtown in a more diverse demographic, honest to God, it was 2 out of 3 cars just going nuts seeing us out there. We kept collecting people, passersby would like grab a sign and join us, and we'd have a whole street full of horns going all at the same time, and everybody doing, you know, fists and solidarity and peace signs and thumbs up, and we're all in this together, and it was beautiful, you know. And that's, you know, that was downtown USA, you know, really. I don't think South Bend is a particularly liberal, progressive area, you know, but there it was. And so many more people are awake than used to be. And I predict there'll be 1 million to 2 million people down there in Philadelphia. Oh, I think there will be at least 1 million. People are being mobilized now. People are you know, finding places where lots of people can stay. People are, I've already got plans to go. Don't
tell them where you're going to be.
It's a secret. But I hope as a delegate representing Bernie, but if I'm not, I'll be one of the 1 million or 2 outside. And maybe there'll be more, because there's so many people who are so engaged in this election. I don't think there's ever been this much. I will bet there's never been this many people politically engaged in an election in the history of civilization. How could there have been? We've got Facebook going on. We got millions and millions and millions of people who are spending a few hours a day about this.
Let's talk about Bernie or bust then. Do you know how many people have signed that?
I
pledge
don't
yet?
know how many people have signed.
When I actually signed it last week, and I looked at the number.
We have a phone call. Hold on, our caller. So what is the number last week?
This was a few days ago. It was 800,000 something. So
800,000 people have said that they will not vote for Hillary. I know it grows every day as the scandals grow. We'll be talking about the Hillary Victory Fund in a minute and how our friend Cecilia got ripped off by Hillary, and everyone's getting ripped off. Rick, you're on Oh Say Can You See? It's May 4th. May the 4th be with you. Rick?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Could you turn him up a little bit? I can't really hear him.
Can you hear me?
Just barely.
Hello?
There you go. That's good.
Yeah, well, are any of you feeling the burn yet?
Yeah.
Well, I voted for him in Michigan, and that's the only time I can vote for him unless he gets the nomination. I got my sign in the yard, I got a sign in the house, and
Right on.
the thing of it is that, you know, it's a little different in both parties. I mean, in the Republican Party, the so-called anti-establishment guy won, although I find it hard to believe that a billionaire can be considered anti-establishment.
Yeah, no kidding.
I thought that when Ross Perot was called a populist in '92, he was also a billionaire. But I think
Right.
Ross Perot, as weird as he was, actually did care somewhat about working people. That's why he was against NAFTA. I don't think Donald Trump cares about anything except himself and maybe his immediate family. But as far as Bernie is concerned, he's waging a good fight, you know, and even the so-called liberals, like on MSNBC, they're basically saying, if you paraphrase it, you know, okay, it's time to get out, Bernie. You gave it a good try. Hillary's inevitable. Get behind her. But Steve, you brought up a good point. These investigations of Hillary, they are not partisan. This is the Obama Justice Department under Loretta Lynch, I believe her name is,
Yeah.
a Clinton appointee. This is not partisan. So if she were to get indicted, which I don't think she will, there's no way anybody could call it partisan, right?
You don't think she will?
I don't think she will. Do you think she should be?
Well, it's hard to see if you haven't seen the evidence. You know, it's all I know is that Michael Flynn, Lieutenant General Michael Flynn, who was head of Obama's Defense Intelligence Department, said that she should drop out of the race. She's not only hurting the party, but she's jeopardizing American or national security. And he went on to say that if he had done anything like that, he would have been in prison a long time ago. Just
Well,
having the server in her basement.
Why did she do that?
Because she wanted to avoid the scrutiny of Freedom of Information Act laws. She already scrubbed a lot of stuff from that server that she said was private, like emails to her husband. Apparently, Bill doesn't use emails, but
Bill
when
uses
she means
emails.
private, what
Oh,
she
that's a
means
joke.
is Clinton
I shouldn't
Foundation
have said that, I guess.
business. And Clinton Foundation business means money laundering, and it means arms sales.
you think-
And when she put that in her basement, she was already conspiring to commit a felony. That was
Yeah.
already a
I mean,
felony.
yeah,
because-
I guess I do think she should be indicted because anyone else who had some kind of evidence against them of criminal conspiracy would definitely be indicted.
The crime is that she exposed state secrets to the public. Because basically, if you have a private server, you're available to any hacker from any government.
Right.
You're right out there. You might as well be a billboard for them.
Exactly, and when she hired Brian Pagliano, the State Department employee of hers, to moonlight to set up her server, that was conspiracy to skirt classification laws, to skirt
You know-
national security laws. That I think she should be indicted.
It would seem as if this year, with two candidates who have such highly unfavorable ratings, this would be a good year, but I don't think it can happen, a good year for a third party to actually have a chance to win. But of course, that won't happen.
Well, the system is so rigged that if Bernie can't win the nomination by millions of people standing up and saying, democracy now, we're not going to have a criminal shoved down our throats, we want our pick. If that doesn't work, I don't see how a third party could work because the system is already that far rigged.
So
But
our
this
choices-
these are revolutionary times.
So our choices
there's
are
really
between-
no telling what could happen. Clinton thinks that her trump card is Trump himself, that his negatives are so high that she'll get elected. But the thing is, she is continuing to sing. Even if she gets the nomination, there's no telling that she could beat Trump.
I think she could, but the
The
question
polls
is,
show within the realm of a margin of error,
Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that she's going to be continuing to go down.
It has been continuing to go down. Yeah.
Especially because now Trump has no one else to focus on. And if you heard his tweet earlier today that I mentioned, where he said, "Boy, I'm glad I don't have to run against Bernie Sanders because he actually gets votes. I only have to run against Hillary, who's going to be nominated because the DNC has rigged it for her." He's going to be hammering on this till the election, and people already don't like Hillary.
do you agree with them on that? It's been rigged for her?
That
Yeah.
this is rigged.
Oh,
Let's go over the exit polls again.
Yeah.
These are way beyond any standard deviations. These are percentage discrepancies in the exit polls that the U.S. and the UN have used to invalidate elections in Georgia and Ukraine.
The margin of error is 4%, and in the open primary states, it's a lot of places it's even less than that.
Yeah, the evidence of rampant electoral fraud, voter suppression, the tampering of registrations, And now with the Hillary Victory Fund, the level of corruption every day is showing more and more. This is a huge dossier. This is a crisis of democracy. And as much as Trump is a gauche and reprehensible person, he is not the one who's committing these crimes. So how could Hillary be the lesser evil?
Well, of course, we know in 2000 that Gore had the election basically stolen from him by Jeb Bush in Florida and Katherine Harris. You know, if they would have counted all, he won the nationwide popular vote. He probably won the vote in Florida,
Yes.
but they never counted all the votes. Then in 2004, you mentioned exit polls. The exit polls in the morning and afternoon of...
Hey, what's going on here? Turn that music off.
Yeah,
He's up to a good point. The exit polls in Ohio also showed that the election was stolen by
Right.
the Republicans.
And I don't know if you remember a fellow named Mike Ray. He was a friend of mine, a pretty conservative guy. He appeared on some of these shows, very conservative guy. And he said, Rick, he says, in 2004, he says, Bush did not win the popular vote. It's the only time, supposedly, the Republican candidate in the last 6 elections has won the nationwide popular vote. But he told me that there was so much fraud with the machines nationwide that Kerry actually not only won in Ohio, he won nationwide, but they just had the machines all fixed for Bush. I don't know if that's true or not.
I saw something today where even the paper ballots that go through the counting machines, they did an experiment and sent 10 ballots through, and 1 out of the 10 would go the other way.
There you go. People literally watched well, for one thing, some people couldn't even vote for Bernie in New York. People were reporting that they were trying to vote for Bernie. It was electronic. It wouldn't take. It
Yeah.
would not take. And then there were also people who had voted for him, and they'd watch it switch over to Hillary. There's an amazing chart of any voting district that had more than 100,000,
10,000.
no, more than 100,000 registered Democratic voters went to Hillary. And it was like this, there's this chart, and it was like this magic line. Any county that had less than 100,000 registered Democratic voters went to Bernie, but at the magic line, boom, all of a sudden they were way, way high for Hillary. Like these big leaps into Hillary land. But gosh, like there was nobody who showed up in New York City for Bernie, right? They didn't really care for him there. There weren't crowds of tens of thousands upon thousands of people there for Bernie. Oh,
For
no.
his rallies, yeah.
Yeah.
But for some reason,
No.
for some reason they
They
couldn't
didn't
be
go out
bothered
to vote, right, no.
Bernie
This is
officially
from Medium.com today. Hillary Clinton and electoral fraud, why we must investigate. Let me read this quote from Robert F. Kennedy Jr., Rick. I really want to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
Exit polls, why they have been significantly off. This is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Over the past decades, exit polling has evolved into an exact science. Indeed, amongst pollsters and statisticians, such surveys are thought to be the most reliable. Exit polls in Germany, for example, have never missed the mark by more than 0.3%.
Wow.
Exit polls are almost never wrong. Dick Morris, a political consultant who has worked for both Republicans and Democrats, including Bill Clinton, noted after the 2004 vote. Such surveys are so reliable, he added, that they are used as guides to the relative honesty of elections in third world countries. In 2003, vote tampering revealed by exit polls in the Republic of Georgia forced Edward Shevardnadze to step down. And in November 2004, exit polling in the Ukraine, paid for by the Bush administration, exposed election fraud that denied Viktor Yushchenko the presidency. So the polls of these primaries are deviating all in one direction towards Hillary Clinton. So this is above and beyond the voter suppression, the registration tampering, and the calls to people in Indiana telling them that Bernie had dropped out and endorsed Hillary,
Yeah.
or the letters
Mentioned
that were
that.
sent out in New York telling people that the primary was in September, and when it was pointed out to them, they said, well, we can't afford to send out letters to correct that. This systematic pattern is all designed to deliver the nomination to Hillary Clinton, who then is likely to deliver the presidency to Donald Trump. This is what happens when democracy breaks down. We could have a democratic election, but the Nixonian tactics of Hillary Clinton are taking us further down the road that the Republicans started on. When Clinton has surpassed the Republicans in Nixonian tactics at this point. So it is no longer possible to vote for her as a lesser evil.
I still think she is, but she's still not a good choice, obviously. And of course,
You don't think she is a lesser evil? I'm beginning to think,
I think they're both evil.
Yeah, they're two sides of the same coin of it. They're,
He's a narcissist megalomaniac with emotional intelligence of a 4-year-old.
And those are his
She's-
good points.
and
Huh?
she's a junior
And those are
high
his
B
good points.
girl.
And those are his
got
good
with
points,
the
right.
I'm
And
just
then, yeah,
joking.
she's a conniving, talk about totally self-serving. Yeah, and she's lies, cheats, and God knows what else she's done.
Aren't they a lovely pair?
Aren't they? And they are friends, after all.
Oh, of course.
So, what
And their
arrangement?
daughters are very close.
What
well,
arrangement
Trump
that-
is prone to spit out conspiracy theories, so maybe if Hillary gets the nomination, he'll pull some stuff out of his sleeve and spew it out for everybody.
Well, I'm sure he's
Or
going to
maybe
spew
he'll
it out.
be her Secretary of State.
Well, they
Right?
both have so much baggage that we all know about. They don't even have to do any Oppo research. It's all out there.
Right.
Where it's just reached a point of cynical absurdity. People just will reach a point where not only do they not expect the elections to be fair, they expect them not to be fair. And when you reach that point, you no longer have a democracy, which is exactly what the oligarchy wants.
Yeah.
This would be, either way, Trump or Hillary would be the apotheosis of the oligarchy. But don't forget, even if Bernie Sanders does not become president, he will still be a senator. He has a legislative agenda. He has a movement behind him. He'll be the only politician in America at a high level who has any legitimacy or moral authority. If Trump wins, you'll still have these huge negatives. If Hillary wins, she'll still be under multiple investigations. You can't expect either of those people to do anything for the people, but the people will be able to do something for themselves through our legislative process, because Bernie Sanders will have such a strong coalition behind him that, in a sense, he will be ruling as a prime minister in a parliamentary system.
How many Bernie voters do you think would cross over to Trump? I've heard some talk.
Oh, I don't think, no, that's not, no, they're not going to, but a lot of them will vote for Jill Stein.
Oh, she's going
Like
to
you said, this would be a
Socialist
good
Party or whatever
year
natural
for
law
third
party.
parties to get some foothold.
Well, listen, I better get off. My phone's starting to croak here. So thanks for the time.
Oh, thank you, Rick. Thanks for the call.
Yeah, Bernie himself has said that this election is kind of a litmus test to see also if we still have a democracy, if there's still a chance of someone who isn't a billionaire to become president.
We're back by billionaires.
Or backed by billionaires, exactly. And so see, I really think he's gotten 9 million votes to date, with a whole lot more to go.
Yeah.
14 elections are left, and he's won 17.
No, he's what, 18?
New
If you count
Jersey,
Indiana.
Oh,
New Jersey
the-
hasn't voted yet, right?
New Jersey has not voted
I'm
yet.
behind. Okay. 19? Cool. Yeah. S- So, I have a little history on contested conventions here.
Okay.
Just a itty bitty bit. And that is the last time that we had a contested convention and a candidate that went on to win the general was in 1932. And that was Franklin Delano Roosevelt. And after all, that's rather fitting, isn't it? Because he is certainly one of Bernie's role models, I would say. He was a genuine Democrat, just like Bernie is. Bernie's painted as a radical, but he's actually a mainstream. His views are held by over 50% of the electorate and as high as 90% in some issues. So Bernie represents us. It's just the propaganda machine has done a really good job.
Yeah, let's talk about a little bit more about the media. I mean, we're used to the media having a certain bias towards their corporate masters. After all, the corporations own the media, and even something like NPR is largely supported and controlled by corporate interests. So obviously, they were never friendly to Sanders and have said since the beginning that he can't win. They're just continuing to say it flatly now.
This
did
is
you have
my
something
letter
read?
to NPR today.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is something
well,
somebody posted, and it said, I just sent
I did. It's
This-
mine.
Well, this was the
Yeah,
letter
it
you
was
sent
me,
to
Sean. It
NPR
was me.
today, as they were continuing to say.
to the Diane Rehm Show on NPR. So sick of their propaganda. Your discussion of the Democratic Party primary is disingenuous for so many reasons, and I'll name a few. First, the Democratic Party is headed toward a congested convention. Bernie is going to continue to gain on Hillary, and she isn't going to get enough delegates to win the primary outright. So what you should be talking about in light of this is how a contested primary works and has
Contested
worked.
convention.
Yeah, contested convention works and has worked in the past. Second, one of Bernie's biggest problems is you and all the rest of the corporate controlled media listen to yourselves. You sound just like Fox News, talking about NPR. You should be ashamed and stop calling yourselves public media. You represent corporations and the establishment. Bernie appeals to everyone. Once they know who he really is and who Hillary really is, without the establishment propaganda obfuscation. Many older people only get their news from corporate-controlled media sources like NPR, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, etc.
Yeah.
That affects Bernie's demographic. Third, the election fraud in this race is outrageous, and you should be talking about this every day and recognize its effect on the outcomes. And finally, Bernie has made it clear that he is unlikely to endorse Hillary, period, for thousands of reasons, beginning, I would guess, with all the lies she has told about him. You are a disgrace, NPR. I no longer trust or support you. You should be ashamed of yourselves, all of you. If I worked for NPR or Michigan Radio, I would have quit long ago. Yeah. So I listened to NPR for a long time. I kind of
And I
faded
close
away.
with,
See,
call yourselves what you are,
Yeah.
corporate-controlled radio, CCR. Yeah.
So let's just look at that again. All the levels of establishment, election rigging, and for a long time, people have suspected that this is the way it is. But if Bernie's campaign has done nothing else, it has exposed the rigging in the system, because for once, the system is being confronted by a candidate who actually is capable of building a social movement that is able to overthrow the plutocracy and create a more democratic, sane humane and sustainable society. Before the elections were rigged, but they were always able to control who was getting close to the prize. Now you have Bernie Sanders with a good chance of seeing it, of realizing this dream, of getting this nomination and being elected president, and therefore they've had to pull all the stops out in their electoral rigging, and we can see more clearly what is really going on. For one, media manipulation. The corporate-owned media has consistently created a narrative that dismisses a populist candidate who has real real social democratic plans, Medicare for all, tuition-free college, universal voter registration, voting by mail, making post offices into public option banking, all sorts of things that would create a system that would give people a chance to get ahead instead of being just crushed under the economic trauma that is the corporate hegemony, the globalization of capitalism is creating a situation in which white people, for instance, are committing suicide off the charts. And one of the biggest reasons for it is lack of health care. People are treating their psychological pain with opioids that are being prescribed to them by doctors who are part of a medicine for-profit system. All these things are undermining our society in so many ways, and that's the way they want it. Now here comes a candidate who can change direction, and they are doing everything they can to stop him. Mm-hmm. This is live on May 4th, 2016. Our phones are open, 459-4881. Give us a call if you want to talk about the rigging of the elections, the contested convention coming up on the Democratic side, Bernie Sanders' chances of winning. Let's talk about superdelegates. How do we get the superdelegates to come around? I don't think we're going to get the lobbyists, but it looks like one of them has just went off to prison, so this can be done. This can be done, and if it's not done, as I said, it exposes the rigging. Sanders will still be in the Senate. I would think that one of his first orders of business would be getting through the legislation he's already written to make our elections fair, free, and transparent. And let's see if Hillary signs it, or would Trump be more likely to sign it? Trump. Exit polls on the Republican side are almost as good as German exit polls. They're all within 1% of exit polls and official reports. It's only on the Democratic side. If you go and watch The Sane Progressive on YouTube, look for her program in which she interviews a statistician and mathematician who's looked at the exit polls, and he says that the odds of all of these election polls being skewed that far in Hillary Clinton's favor is absolutely statistically phenomenal. It is not a possibility that this could have happened without systematic election fraud.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's a battle between an honest person, an honest statesman, and, as you say, the whole establishment. And Bernie knows it. Bernie knows that's what he's up against. He announced it right from the beginning.
Right.
And the establishment, they've got everything at stake. They don't want to pay any more taxes. They don't want to be responsible for what they do to our planet or to us or to anything else. And so, like you say, they're giving it everything they have, and they will keep upping it. Now, superdelegates say in Washington State, Bernie won every county by over 73%. So that's one of the states where he's already gone after the superdelegates, and so have the people, and people have been arrested for going after those superdelegates, trying to get appointments with them and urge them to go over to Bernie. Yeah, have been hauled out of offices for asking for an appointment.
That was another superdelegate too.
Oh, she was a superdeleate.
She was a
Yeah, she
superdelegate.
was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
She
She was hauled off, and then the media that was filming the thing, they said, "You'll be taken to jail too if you keep this up. Just you better quietly walk out of here right now, or we're putting you in jail too."
I just want an
Land
appointment.
of the free, home of the brave. Yeah. So yeah, we're up against it. It really is big. I mean, the control that's over us now from the corporate, planet is so huge. And if they get away with this one, that's why when people say, "Well, you will vote for Hillary if," no, you don't get it.
You
No,
can't.
she is the representative of all of that control of
Right.
all the destruction of our democracy. She's the figurehead right now.
Well,
no.
and make sure you tell them you're not voting for Trump either, because my Canadian relatives, I
Oh,
told them I
yeah.
wasn't voting for Hillary, and they assumed I was voting
Oh,
for
no.
Trump.
Right, and that's the way Hillary has set it up to be. It's like,
Right.
oh, you know about Trump?
he's
Trump's
worse.
terrible. And yeah, he is, like I said, he's very gauche, but his crimes are still in the hatching phase, and her crimes are already like the skeletons in her closet. They're out.
Yeah.
They're out and they're running
She's
around.
destroyed
They're out-
nations already. So with
Yeah.
Libya
Yeah, so
and
let's-
such.
let's-
So, but let's not fall into the trap of talking as if Bernie's done like mainstream media does.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's keep talking about Bernie because, he's done an amazing job. And I'll tell you what, the grassroots, wherever you are, be part of the grassroots because, Bernie's campaign people come in and they kind of parade around a little bit. But I'll tell you, frankly, I have found that the grassroots people are far more passionate and effective. So, jump in there wherever you can and become part of it where you are.
Do you know anything about the phone banking? How many calls have been made? I've heard there was many millions of calls.
There are millions and millions,
Yeah.
but there are other things to do. Like if there's an election in your area, this is what we did. Yesterday in South Bend, Indiana, we went around and tacked these signs up. I made 200 of these signs and we tacked them up all over town. We got 140 of them out. And that was 2 people. If we'd been more people, we'd have gotten more
Smells like
signs out.
Magic marker. or
It
something.
is.
They're magic
It's how
She
signs.
smells
kept
like
going,
magic.
200.
200 of them. Those
you go
might
and
end
take
up
them
in
down?
those might end up in California because I got a couple dozen left. Yeah. But the Bernie thing is huge. I mean, we have a in terms of people being engaged, we do have a democracy again. We do. And now the vitality is terrific. And people the way Bernie has a coalition within the government is for people to pay attention to who's endorsing him, pay attention to who's backing him, and put some positive notes on their Facebook pages, and send them a few bucks if you can. Some of them are like, there was a gal that Planned Parenthood cut loose. She had been one of their darlings, Lucy Flores.
Yeah.
She had been a darling of Planned Parenthood because she's a big advocate. But they cut her loose. They endorsed someone else because she endorsed Bernie. The month that happened, she got like $676,000 in donations from Bernie supporters who recognized that she's an ally, and and he put out an appeal, and we supported her too. And that's what we're doing. And then beyond, so pay attention to that. For the
Right.
2016 election, we can turn over a lot of seats. Everybody who
Right.
comes forth and says, I back Bernie, and my campaign.
We need to look,
Coordinates
our
with
elected
his.
Democrats who do not endorse Bernie need to be primaried out.
Yep.
We need a roll call vote of the superdelegates. That's why Bernie's taken it all the way to the convention, because we need to know where those superdelegates stand.
Yep, their
because
career, yes, their political career
Their
will
politi-
be over.
is in the balance.
Yeah. Yep, it does. So if they want to be fool enough to back this whole thing, and I'm sure they're in it deep. I'm sure there are favors, there's money, there's all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
The whole Hillary Victory Fund.
Let's talk about that.
Oh, yeah. Supposedly Hillary did this thing to back the locals, the local Democrats at all the different levels, and basically what she did is she bought the superdelegates in the states that
Yeah.
agreed to this, and 33 states agreed to be part of her little pact here
Right.
before the thing even got rolling. And lo and behold, they just yesterday came out with a study. It's been exposed. Only 1% of all those funds. Basically, big corporations, billionaires could
Right,
pour
right.
their. It's a super PAC.
Yeah, they went through a
So
loop. They went through a loophole in 2014.
An election
Put
loophole.
all this money into these super PACs, which was about the same time they bought the head of the election board in Brooklyn, the one who.
Yeah.
So that was extra. That was out. She was a Republican. That was a Republican they bought.
She was
But they were
bonus.
also buying these local Democratic parties, and the idea was that she could get all of these corporations to donate money that they would be able to use at their local parties, state parties to run local party people. But all that money got laundered through the state parties back to her. 99%.
99% of that went back to Hillary. And so, in a way, it might be worth looking at, did the superdelegates maybe actually think that while they were making a pact that maybe was maybe a little shady, but maybe they actually thought that they were helping the all their Democratic colleagues in their state, and
Right.
therefore helping everybody because,
No.
Democrats are better than Republicans, that whole thing. And though all of them aren't, maybe people could be given a little benefit of the doubt at the front, and just like back to those people in Washington State, but 73% or more of your constituents voted for Bernie.
Right.
So don't you think,
And only 1% of that money Hillary
only-
said she was given. Yeah, it's a lot like
got to you or anybody else in your state? Yeah.
the Charity Watch put the Clinton Foundation on its watch list because they were only given 9% of their money to charity, and the rest was going for overhead. And even the money that was going for charity was somehow magically along the agenda lines of the people who were giving it. And she, as Secretary of State, was selling weapons to foreign governments that were giving money. She was not reporting money from foreign governments and foreign corporations because of things like uranium sales and arms sales and things that she was doing. The level of conspiracy and corruption here is something we have
Huge.
never seen. This is bigger than Iran-Contra. This is bigger than Watergate. Hillary's ifs and ands and buts are just huge. Huge.
Yeah.
Ah,
Arms sales doubled with President Obama over what they were with Bush.
yeah.
And that was Hillary's Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And they were two nations that we had already called out for their human rights violations.
Yep.
And we sold them more arms. We could do a whole show on the Clinton Foundation, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Or 10.
Yeah, we certainly could.
Yeah.
Private prisons, that's something we did on this show almost 20 years ago. It's been 20 years we've been bringing you the anecdote to the establishment view of what's happening in American politics. 20 years ago, we talked about plans to open privatized prisons. Private prisons, whack and hot, and here we are 20 years later, and who should be the major beneficiary of money from private prison lobbyists but the godmother of mass incarceration herself, Hillary Clinton.
Yeah,
And we're supposed to believe that
she cares.
she cares
She
and
cares.
that we will be better off with her than with Trump. I say would be better off without either the billionaire boys club or the Hillary wing of the Democratic Party. Our country cannot afford not to send everybody to college, because look what happens when you have uneducated voters. Trump says, "Oh, love those poorly educated people." No, Hillary might be able to say the same. So, you guys have anything you want to finish with here? This John Nichols argument, contested convention, and exactly what the Democratic Party needs. Looks interesting. What does he say in terms of why the Democratic Party needs it? I think they need it to clean themselves out. Oh, thanks. I will.
I don't
I'm
know.
talking.
He's got something here that Jesse Jackson said. Conventions are where we come together, but you don't really come together if you avoid differences. Says the Reverend Jesse Jackson, who has protested, attended, or spoken at nearly a dozen Democratic national conventions, and who has not endorsed a candidate in the primary race this year. You start by understanding that it takes two wings to fly. If you have two strong wings, a wing that has won and a wing that has lost, you don't deny the differences, you recognize them, you debate, you find common ground, you find ways to start working together for immediate goals, the next election, and for long-term goals that can mean as much as the nation as to the party. What do you think about that?
Well, that would be great if this were just an honest difference of opinion, which that we could have a debate. But this is a difference between somebody who will say anything, as Barack Obama said of Hillary, she'll say anything and change nothing. So it doesn't matter what she says. And at the same time, her actions have utterly disqualified her, because you cannot have a Democratic nominee who has gotten the nomination by undemocratic means. And there's voter suppression, electoral fraud, bribery, money laundering, media manipulation. It's impossible.
And with all of that, he's gotten 45% of the vote and she's gotten 55%. Even with all of that.